The flags are out, the cowbells are out. And Lotte Udnesveng in the national under-23 team, but we see her in just about all the World Cups now. Comes from Ness, which is what, south of Gull. It's just to the east of Geilo. It's a beautiful central part of Norway. They get cold temperatures, they get lots of snow, and they've produced some good athletes over the years, as has Falun, which is where Maria Dahlqvist comes from. Now, a bit disappointed, 22nd in the mini tour in Lillehammer, Mike, which really gives you an idea of your overall ability with a sprint, a classic race and a freestyle. Were you expecting more from Dahlqvist?
I was, but I mean, she is really, she's coming to the fore of sprinting. Remember that second place in first race of the season in Ruka, and then of course yesterday finishing third in the sprint race here. So she's more a sprinter. Didn't make the top 30 in Lillehammer, which surprised me. So that set her points back a little in the little mini tour. So right now maybe her strength is sprinting, but I'm sure that'll change as she matures.
The Vorlaufers just heading home, having completed their loop of the course, and their job is done. I think they're all going to come in and say the tracks were fine. I thought the Vorlaufers had to get back just to confirm to the officials that everything was okay, Mike. What's the use of them coming in after the first runners have gone?
Maybe they missed it. Maybe they didn't really figure that this 5-kilometer track that they're on here takes so long. Quite interesting, that run out of the stadium. It's gradual, and ahead of her, Dahlqvist could see full 1 minute to Hernickel, still in the distance ahead of her.
I tell you what would be nice one day would be to follow one of the big names all the way through the warm-up process, just to see what they do. So many of our viewers do races, whether they're Loppet races or the odd 15 or 10k here and there, but it would be nice to see how the best get themselves prepared, because if you don't push your pulse rate up and if you don't stretch your lungs, you're going to really suffer, particularly here in Davos.
I think you have to have certainly put 4 kilometers mileage in your legs. You need to have taken your heartbeat up to maximum, or you really do suffer on this track.
Coralie Bentz of France. And she comes from Argentière, which is just up the road from Chamonix. Again, the altitude here won't be too much of an issue for her. What can the Italians do today? Sara Pellegrini's going off number 15. They've got Elise Bricard starts number 22. Have the Italians' golden days gone? Well, Stefania Belmondo, what a star she was.
Well, she's the only Italian actually to win on this course. She only did it once, and this is a track that suits her body shape. You know, very small, very slender. But she only took it once. In fact, the majority of wins here have come from 16 from Norway, 13 from Russia in their heyday in the 80s and 90s. And then a sprinkling of other nationals. Belmondo, Shevchenko from Ukraine has won it, Koitinen from Finland, and Majdic in the distance race. She won it once as well.
Yeah, but in recent years, it's been Bjørgen, Johaug,
Norway,
Østberg, Norway. That's stating the obvious, you know, really. But what I find interesting is that Østberg generally does really well here, and she's an athlete who's had far too few wins when you consider the quality that she is.
Well, that's interesting, the psychology of that positivity. She likes this place, she's won it twice here, and she's chasing, she's trying to close down on Therese Johaug. Psychologically, it would be great for her to take this win today.
Oh, it's going to be tough to beat Johaug in the form that she's shown so far. Johaug, incidentally, going off number 34, if you're a fan of hers. Østberg has the perfect start, 1 minute behind. There's no coach out there that's going to make a mistake on that split.
Well, remember in Ruka, the first World Cup, when Østberg started behind Johaug, she really slammed the first half of her race, stayed level, maybe 5 seconds behind, then dropped back to 40
paid the
behind.
price.
Yeah,
paid the price.
Might see this. Well, she'll certainly try to stay with it today. Technicians just brushing the base of the ski for the final prep.
Fedra Pisson starting a minute and a half ahead of the Finnish veteran Rita-Liisa Ropinen, who's not looked on bad form, to be honest, Ropinen. Here come Shuetseva, who has gone past Steiner already on the climb out of the stadium. Shuetseva from the Czech Republic.
Sapunki, well, you did predict she'd make a top, what, 25, top 20. She started well. A 6:22 up to the 2.2.
I don't think I predicted it. I said it would. It's possible. It's possible that she could make top 20, 25.
I'm going to say she'll make top 20.
Well, with the slightly reduced field, the chances increase. We're down to 76. We had over 100 earlier on in the season.
Kala, of course, not making the journey here to Dav.os. Which, and I think that's sensible. She was still racing well last weekend in Beidestollen, but maybe just wanting and looking after her recovery. Building up possibly for the World Championships. Seefeld.
Nechevskaya for Russia just signing the board, the anti-doping board. Some powerful looking V2 from Hernickel coming up towards the split time. At the moment, Sapunki still with the fastest time of 6:22 to this stage. And it does look as though Lotte Udnesveng of Norway is going to challenge that time. She's approaching that mark now.
Well, Lotte Udnes yesterday, she had some bad luck. Her ski came off on the very sharp right-hander up the steep climb. Unusual.
Do you think Van der Graaf has any chance for Switzerland starting 41?
Freestyle, maybe, but if it was classic or if it were in the classic technique, I think she'd have a better chance. So I would imagine a top 10 is possible.
So Sapunki still hanging in there. Maja Dav.os going through for Sweden. She's gone into third place, 12 seconds off the pace. That's at only 2.2 kilometers. So if she's pacing, she's now got to put the work in. If she's not, she's in trouble. Schlind for Norway comes from Oppdal, which is up in Trollheim, and quite a long way north, actually, not so far south of... I was going to say Trondheim, but it's not quite that far north. And Silja Orreschlind, the first of the two sisters to get out on the track. Susanna Sapunki of Finland, who started first, is still the fastest to the 2.2 marker. Always a little bit short on cameras here in Dav.os. I don't know whether it's to do with the electricity supply or what, but we don't get a huge amount of action from the top end of the course, which is where we want to see the start of the downhill. Number 25 underway, Nadine Feindrich, the camera's staying on her. Not bad progress, actually, from Feindrich in the World Cup. Last 4 years, 55, 35, 27, down to 26 this season. That's the sort of progress that you like to see. Very, very few athletes have that instant success like we've seen from Bolshinov and Klæbo on the men's tour.
It's funny, isn't it, the journey of different athletes. Some take a long time. This young lady, Therese Johaug, at 18-year-old, she stamped her authority in the World Cup. What's she done? Lost her skis? Where's my skis?
You could put her in a Hessian sack and she'd still look good. This is just one of those athletes that has a lot of style. Nice to see that there's a little bit of panic there. Not sure she's in too much trouble in terms of her start time. As I mentioned, she starts number 34. The warm-up pretty much done, 32 behind her, so no rush for Johaug. Anderson's in a much worse position. Is it going to be another win for Johaug? She's basically won every time she's put her skis on, except for one sprint where she didn't get through to the knockout phases.
Yeah, I think she was 35th, so absolutely all the distance races, she's with apparent ease taking the titles.
Here's her main rival, Usberg, who, as Mike said, has won twice here before. Would love to make it 3, but with Johaug back in the field, it's going to be tough. And both of Usberg's wins coming when Johaug wasn't racing.
big factor, big factor. And what confidence when Johaug wasn't racing for those 2 years, 2 winters, it gave Heidi Weng and Usberg so much confidence that they could be winners. And they really did push their limits. But now Heidi Weng is, I think, fatigued from the last 3 seasons of extremely hard pushing.
Jessie Diggins racing for the United States. She's got bib number 40. Any big names missing, Mike?
Well, Kalla's the standout, taking the break. I think that's a sensible thing. We've seen over the years she not loses her way a little bit when she's intensely continuing to race all the time.
The camera's constantly going back to Van der Graaf as we go to Natalie von Siebenthal. And she had a good top 20 in the 10 free in Lillehammer. So she's got a good chance. Doesn't live near Davos, comes from Gstaad, actually, where, again, the rich and famous go. So she'll feel very much at home here in Davos. And also won't have too many problems coping with the altitude. Can't quite remember what the altitude is in Gstaad. I think it's about 1,500.
Not sure. It's a place I haven't been to, but this is a gorgeous place in Davos as well. Well, but Sapunki is still holding on with a bib number 1. Bib 18 nearly got there, but what's that, 3 seconds behind?
So 6:22 still the target time, but once the seeded group get underway, that time of Sarpunki's is going to be toppled, no doubt about it, and Eva Andersson could be the one to do that. What a sensational season she's had so far. Lying 4th in the World Cup standings, Andersson, and as the first seed, she can put pressure on everyone else, and that's a very determined start. Just looked a little bit heavy in the legs, but she'll build up the speed and then needs to settle into an easy pace, because it looks flat, the meadow, but you're actually gradually climbing up until you enter the woods, and then the really steep climb starts.
Look at this intent, Patrick. This is serious intent to try and keep her running pace faster than Therese Johaug, who starts very soon.
Yeah, what does she do to upset Johaug? Go really fast at the start, or maybe start steady and hope that Johaug goes too quick? But have we ever seen Johaug fade in the closing stages?
No, and we've never, here she is, we've never seen her anything other than setting off so fast from the gun, and I'm sure we'll see that again right now.
Delphine Claudel for France, starting after Eva Andersson. She's out on the track. Johaug starting 30 seconds after the Frenchwoman. 47 wins to her name already for Therese Johaug. This is her 200th World Cup, so she's almost won 25% of the races she's entered. That is a phenomenal record.
That absolutely is. Well, as predicted, she's setting out fast as well, like Eva Andersson. I'd love to see Andersson really, but she's challenged on Lillehammer only to, what, 6 seconds over the distance. And so she must believe, Andersson will have been briefed last night that she can take this title here.
I must say, you know, I'm glad to see Johaug back. I think she livens up the tour, but what I really regret is the fact that her 2-year ban coincided with the end of Marit Bjørgen, because it would have been fantastic to see those two battling it out last year, and particularly it would have been good to see what happened at Pyeongchang. But had Johaug been there, perhaps Marit Bjørgen wouldn't have become the most successful Winter Olympian ever.
I'm with you. With absolute respect to Marit, I think it would have been very different with Johaug there, but she didn't earn it.
Usberg, and Usberg's got a good start number. She knows exactly what she's got to do. She's not going to see a huge amount of Therese Johaug, but she might get the occasional glimpse, and she'll be able to pace herself. I like that start from Usberg. Look, very, very fluent, very relaxed, good, efficient skiing. And at this level, Mike, yes, they're all phenomenally fit. Some have just slightly better cardiovascular systems. They're equally strong. How important is the actual technique?
Technique is vital, but I think when you make that red suit of Norway, your technique has mostly been ironed out into a very efficient place. But yes, there are differences. Of course there are in athletes with the knees coming in and so on. I think that Usberg is up there as one of the best technicals.
Yeah, and the shape and size of the athlete makes a difference as well. Parma Koski, she's short, she's powerful, and she has the mind of of the most tenacious Jack Russell that you've ever met. She will not let go. And I think because of that, Palmakoski's particularly good in the mass starts, because she can tuck in behind someone, and it doesn't matter how hard it hurts, she's not going to let them go.
She is a terrier, an absolute terrier. She's not, well, she's familiar with the podium here a couple of times in third place in this race, the distance race. But yesterday, it worries me, she did go right the way through to the finals in the sprint competition, but burnt out, lost her way in the final.
Well, maybe decided she wasn't going to win it. 25, Nadine Feindrich, still Sarpunki leading at 2.2, but we're expecting that to change over the next couple of minutes. Jess Diggins could be one to go ahead of the 6:22. Certainly she's got that sort of ability. The Americans starting to show the form. They have stated quite categorically at the start of the season that their focus was all on the World Championships in Seefeld. But they need to start to show something, particularly so they go into the Christmas break with the spirits high, gives them motivation for the training over the festive period as opposed to the eating, and then they come back and show their class early January, building all the way to the end of February.
Very much, and I think, of course, that the Americans tend to stay here in Davos over the Christmas period, home from home.
Van der Graaf, she's a handy sprinter, got 2 sprint wins to her name already. She was 5th in the sprint standings last season. That shows you how good she was. What are we going to see from her on this 10-kilometer, which is what, 6.5 times longer than the average sprint course? 42 is Teresa Stadlober. She looks hungry. I think we could see a dynamic start from her here.
Poised, ready to go on that final beep.
Best she's finished this season, 7th. Well, not quite as dynamic as I was expecting. I thought we might see her explode out of the start gate, but she's built the speed relatively quickly. The skis, Mike, heading pretty much down the track. A lot have a wider V than that on that initial stage.
A lot do, but Therese has improved on her freestyle. I think she'll admit that it is her statistically her weaker technique. She's much better in the classic style, but improving in freestyle.
That right ski of von Siebenthal seems to be stalling a little. Look how early it goes onto its edge, not really going through a nice long glide phase. Left ski a little bit better, but I think that's something you'd try and iron out.
Strange, I mean, it's and the shoulders, the head coming right over above each ski. I mean, that's getting all your weight over, but a lot of body movement there as well.
Listen to us giving them technical advice. Nonsense.
Terrible.
But you know, you do see it when you talked about the knock knees. When you have the knees that are close together, the ski tends to go onto its edge much earlier, and a fast ski is a flat ski.
No, and I think it is worth comment. You know, you look at athletics, and there's so many different styles of running. Some move their head around. It's definitely noteworthy.
Well, here's the contrast with Ebba Andersson, beautifully flat initially, and then just tilting the ski at the end of the drive. 7.2 inside. Sarpunki eventually, it's taken 31 attempts to depose her from the top of the leaderboard at 2.2, and it's Ebba Andersson who's gone through a 7.2 second gap, and now we've just got some 35 seconds to wait to see what this lady can do. The yellow bib of Therese Johaug, and she is motoring up over this climb.
Well, I reckon she's going to be Therese, what, 3 seconds faster, or 2 seconds maybe than Anderson?
2. Do you want to make it? Do you want to make it 18?
Word.
Something like that? That is incredible.
Oh my word!
Absolutely incredible. The work rate. Well, if you listen carefully, you can hear her breathing.
Well, what a statement that is. It's in just 2 kilometers. Didn't expect that. I thought it would be a lot closer with Ebba Andersson putting in such a strong start.
At that rate, she's going to catch Ebba Andersson, who started a minute in front of her. Stina Nielsen, what sort of form is she on? She won the sprint yesterday. There must be an element of fatigue going all the way and having to work so hard on that final sprint as well to get the victory.
Just thinking, didn't I missed that one. Of course, the rise here, the climb from this point, the start line, to 2.2 is 81-meter climb, and of course Therese Johaug climbing, it's her absolute favorite. So I think that Ebba Andersson may gain a little later on the easier part of the course, but it won't be much, fractional.
36 is Usberg coming up, and she's not going to be far outside. That's not a bad start from Usberg, and she looks to be a little more under control than Johaug, who pushed very hard. Only, what, 4-5 seconds outside, 4.6 the margin. And I think this is a better start than we saw from Usberg in Ruka, where she was 2 seconds quicker than Johaug. Much more sensible. She can use her strength and speed on the downhill to claw that time back.
You know, much more composed. The first race of the season, yes, in Finland, it's a bit edgy, a little nervy, and she went out like a rocket to try and live with that 1 minute start time again behind Johaug. This time, she looks composed and in control. Quite interesting, the different attitudes of the athletes in the warm-up pen. Some are talking to their coach, some are just totally focused on themselves, don't want to talk to anyone. Just personality types.
Sadova, starting number 50, and she's certainly one of the favourites for a top 5, having got into the top 5 in Beiderstolen in the 15th free there. She was about 120, 123 behind, I think it was. What was that, 18 seconds off second place? So she knows that with half a percentage point improvement, she can challenge the leaders. So keep an eye out for number 50. It was Sadova going through. 38, Parma Koski through 2.2. She's gone into third place behind the 2 Norwegians, but ahead of Ebba Andersson of Sweden. So I think Parma Koski will be a mixture of emotions. She'll be disappointed to be 14 seconds off the lead. She'll be in disbelief that she's lost 14 seconds already, but she'll be happy that she's in the top 3.
Just looking at the names yet to start, hopefully Haga.
Yeah, Haga 56, just signing the board. Setlin about to go.
Setlin showing her strength in sprinting as well as over distance.
Very good junior. She is 15th in the World Cup standings, Mike, which would put you in the top 2 of most teams. She's 6th in terms of Swedish skiers in the World Cup standings. That's just an incredible record. So how do you explain the fact that their relay in Beiderstolen was so poor?
I can't explain it. I expected a lot better from them. The first leg, losing 1:10, you can't come back from that. So the skis actually were a big issue.
Jessie Diggins, 23.2 seconds behind. Are the skis an issue with her? That is not the Jess Diggins that we saw fighting, and of course getting an Olympic gold last year with Keegan Randall in the team sprint.
She'll be back. She'll be back. And Christmas here in Davos, she'll get all her rebuilding done again, and I think she'll be back after Christmas.
Sun Ling, one of very few athletes to have had a win this season, and of course she got it in the sprint event in Lillehammer. Sprung a surprise there, took full advantage of the fact that Nielsen had problems and Fowler had problems. Now this is Stadlober coming up. Started 42, so she started, what, 4 minutes behind Therese Johaug, and she goes through the splits 4 minutes and 19 seconds behind. So a 19.6 second loss, but into the top 5. I think Johaug's time is distorting everything, Mike, and credit to Usberg to get within 5 seconds of Johaug.
And still looking composed at this point. The tiny little recovery here, but it's quick, and then it's a little more climbing before the relatively simple journey back to the stadium.
And then you've got to do it all again. Now, the Olympic 10-kilometre freestyle champion, Ragnhild Haga of Norway, of course.
And you know what? That's her second position here last year. That's got to give her a positive feeling. Of course it has, as she exits the stadium, and self-belief that she can do the same or more this time. She is the Olympic champion.
Ingmar's daughter on her 15th season on the World Cup Tour. 2 wins in all that time. I think top 10 would keep her happy. Top 5 would be fantastic. But at the moment, she's some way off the top 5. 28.9 behind, and 5th position is at 19.6. So the margin's significant. Ingmar's daughter, one of the taller athletes, and weighs in considerably heavier than Therese Johaug, and the first part of this course is all uphill. So it is one of those courses that suits a high VO2 more than most.
Very much so, and initially this climb, normal World Cup racing, you're getting undulations throughout the whole 10 kilometre. This course profile, yes, it's within the rule books, but it's a huge climb initially. As I said, 89-metre rise in total from here to 2.7, I think it is.
Now the top cross-country skiers over time, Mike, have had VO2s in excess of 90%. The general test, the easy test, rather than getting on a treadmill with all sorts of breathing devices, is just to find a long, steady climb and race from bottom to top, and the person with the best VO2 will be first to the top. That's pretty much what we've got here in Davos. It's non-scientific, but yeah. It's very, very accurate in terms of comparing one athlete to another.
Yes, you do find your fastest, and Therese, look at the time here. Is it going to be over 20? But I think it doesn't. The clock is still ticking, but Eva Andersson has just gone through 5 kilometers in 13:36, and proportionally in the second part of the course, Therese has not gained as she did in the first part. She's still gaining.
16 ahead at 2.2, and she's taken another 10 seconds off on what was largely downhill. There was that one extra bit of climb after the 2.2 point, but once they get to 2.5, it's all downhill back down into the stadium. So now we've got to watch and see what Johaug can do on the second time up to the, what is it? It's going to be 7.2, isn't it? And we should get another split at 8.2 as well.
I think we could easily predict another 16 seconds off Eva Andersson in that next 2 kilometers. What about Usberg? She should be coming through very soon through the 5 kilometer.
And no indication as yet of Usberg's progress down towards the stadium. This is Soboleva, and she can't quite match Sarpunki, who's had a pretty good run. I still think top 20 is possible for the Finn, and starting number 1, that's quite impressive. Here is Usberg, and she is not far outside. Now, the margin at 2.2 was 4.6 seconds. Has she lost ground on the second phase? Yes, but not much. 7.1. It's still doable for Usberg, but she's got to start working now. A 7-second gain is quite a lot. If you're into running or anything, when you're 7 seconds behind, you know how much work you have to do to catch the athlete in front. Dahlqvist across the line, having started 7, and actually taking a good 30 seconds out of Lotte Udnes Veng. So Maja Dahlqvist has had a good run and sets the early mark. 27:47, the target time.
And typically on this track, it's the clock is very much closer to 30 minutes than anywhere else in terms of 10-kilometer races in the women's field.
Therese Johaug's intermediate time at 5K, Mike, 13:10. So we're looking at around 26.5 minutes. Slightly positive split. Is she going to get a negative split after that start? I don't think so.
Oh, it's unlikely, isn't it? Second time around. Parmakowski looking over at the big screen, just checking where she is. It's reasonably positive.
Well, she was 3rd place going through 2.2, and she's going into 3rd here at 5 kilometers, 18.6. So she has only lost 4.1 seconds between 2.2 and 5. So she's pretty much held her own. And she lost all that 4 seconds on the second phase of the climb. She hasn't lost anything on the descent. So if you want to win this, Mike, and I'm thinking in terms of Usberg, she needs to get back to within a couple of seconds of Johaug going through the 7.2 marker.
It's a huge task. Well, listen to the work rate there, Istomina. This is a very good, said it before, good batch of young Russian athletes coming through now. Istomina is certainly one of them.
Rosie Brennan for USA comes from Alaska, like so many of their top skiers. You ever been to Alaska?
I haven't. I'd love to go there one day.
It's certainly on my hit list, but they've got unbelievable sort of alpine skiing, but you have to make your way to the top, and no shortage of snow for the cross country as well. So Jess Diggins wasn't a very impressive start. Diggins down in 8th at 2.2, 23.2, and she's gone and lost another 12 seconds. So losing a lot of ground on the downhill again. Do we question the American skis? I think we probably have to.
Possibly. Jess is a very good. We saw that in the sprint races yesterday. Very good at her cornering and getting the energy out of these fast descents.
Well, I thought Sophie Caldwell showed incredible cornering skills. She looks so smooth, and that's the one aspect of the sprint course I like here, a technical turn into the finishing straight. So those who are bold and confident can gain 2 or 3 seconds, certainly 20 meters, if they take that final corner well.
It's the ultimate test, though. Your legs are spent by the top of the rise. You've got an 8-second recovery into that corner at 60 kilometers an hour. You need to be brave and trust your legs are going to cope.
Schlind of Norway wearing 21. We stick with Brocard, who's had a very good start for Italy. 34 now, Brocard, and puts in a good split time. She takes the lead as we watch Soboleva coming into the finish. Soboleva, top 50 of the World Cup standings back in 2017, and just outside the leaders.
Very powerful finish, though, from Soboleva.
Because of the profile of this course, most of the athletes look pretty much recovered by the time they cross the finishing line.
Yes, without doubt, you can attack the finish line. You've totally recovered coming down the final descents. Ruppinen, at 40-year-old, I think this is fabulous.
Wow, she's gone ahead of Sarpunki, and I think cementing her place in the Finnish team for the World Championship. She's done enough work pre-Christmas for that. Coming round to the intermediate time for Ida Ingmar's daughter, and Ingmar's daughter outside the top 10 at 2.2. She's down in 14th place, 28 seconds behind. Is that going to double? Surely not. I don't think it's a course for her, to be honest, but she'll be really, really disappointed with that.
Well, she's more the sprinter, isn't she? She's got the strength, she's got the pace, she's got the power, but over the distance, it's quite a tough battle, and I think we'll see her end time. That's 1 minute behind at half distance. It'll be about 1:40 at the end. Yeah,
she was down in 22nd position in the sprint yesterday. 53 in the new Italian colours is Deborah Tolis, and just behind her is Caitlin Patterson of USA. Now, Patterson will be hoping for a top 30. She's been knocking on the door of World Cup points in the distance races this year. Top 30 getting into the points, 100 points for a winner, of course. And even now, it looks as though Therese Johaug is going to move on to 600 points from 6 finished races.
So pre-Christmas period, nothing but victories. So, of course, 1 sprint. This is Stina Nielsen, and she was attacking around this bend yesterday 4 times over the 1.5 kilometer track in the sprints. She won them. Sprint competition. She looked commanding in the sprints from beginning to end.
Can Therese Johaug go all the way to Christmas without being beaten in a distance race? It's looking increasingly like that.
So Dahlqvist's time has been knocked back. Nicole Favre just 27:38 across the line.
Well, I think Johaug is certainly going to get to Christmas. I wonder whether she'll get to the New Year period, because we start again in the Tour de Ski. A lot will depend on whether she enters the Tour de Ski. There will be 1 or 2 top athletes who decide to focus entirely on the World Championships. But if you want to win the overall World Cup, you need to be there in Toblach for the start of the Tour de Ski. And it gets underway on the 29th of December. Stay in Toblach for a couple of days, then Valmersdorf and Oberstdorf as we watch Kavieva Schlind coming up towards the 8.2 kilometre marker. She can only gain, what, a second and a half from here. So you can see that she's going to really struggle to get up into the top 5 by the time she comes across the line.
Usberg has lost a further 5 seconds up to the 7.2. Johaug is 19.02. Usberg is only 12.1 seconds behind.
But a long way ahead of Parmakoski, so still looking good for Usberg. We go from 22 to 32. This is Ebba Andersson, who is setting a fast pace now. Is this a sign? That margin is huge, Mike. Ebba Andersson, I think, is accelerating. She was in 4th at 2.2. She was 4th at 5K, and she was only just behind Parmakoski. I think she might possibly have done enough to get ahead of Parmakoski on this second lap.
She certainly, although Parmakoski has started behind her, Therese on 38 ahead of Andersson now.
Wow.
I think Andersson is definitely trying to close the gap on Parmakoski, who started, what, 3 minutes behind her. She'll have that information.
So Johaug has taken 12 seconds out of Andersson between 5 and 8.2. Elisa Brocard enjoying a few moments in the leader's chair. She's got, what, 7, 8, 9 minutes before Johaug is going to be in. And things will change. Ebba Andersson might get 30 seconds in the chair before she's ousted.
If that. Settling 45 seconds, still a top 10 result, is 8th position.
Here comes Usberg at the last intermediate at 7.2. She was 12.1 behind. Andersson is 38 behind, so she's not going to be pushed down into 3rd, but she's certainly not going to catch Johaug now. 1,800 meters to go from this intermediate point.
Well, all the other athletes in the field and those closest to her will be wondering, how can we beat Therese Johaug? As you said, the next race, 30th of December in Toblach. Just 2 seconds lost there.
Between 7.2 and 8.2, which will, and that's pretty much a par. I think we'll see Usberg accelerating now. I don't think she's going to end up 20 seconds behind Johaug. When you finish 20 seconds behind, Mike, you do think, I could have done that. When you're a minute behind, you know you've been well beaten.
I'm with you, but, you know, as you say, when you're trying to even pull 1 second per kilometre back, you know, you put it in small distances of manageable pain, but then the next kilometre, you're trying to take that 1 second off, and as the kilometres go by, you're just hurting more. You're going over the safe place that you're in. And I agree, it's such small margins. You would think that is doable, that is possible.
Can Haga find herself a slot in the top 5 going through 5K? She's still got 100 meters or so to go before the clock will stop. What are we going to have for a winning time? Will it be under 26 minutes 30? It might well be, the way that Johaug's been going out there. 25, 26, the time ticking by. And Stadlober in 6th is 39 seconds behind. She's well inside that. She goes into 5th. So we have Johaug, Usberg, Parmakoski, Andersson, Haga, the top 5. And we've got Jessie Diggins in 6th place at the halfway stage of this race.
Yes.
I like the Italian colours.
They're growing on me. Just when you're used to the old traditional suit for so many years, it's a big change, a big swap.
Well, I suppose you wore green for so many years of your military career that you...
Absolutely, love it. Don't like it anymore.
It remained well pressed in your cupboard.
It was ready. Feindrich just walking away.
Therese Johaug is on the finishing straight. She's not quite going to catch Ebba Andersson, who started a minute ahead of her. Number 30 is von Siebenthal. Andersson wearing 32, starting a minute behind. The margin will be just about 40 seconds. Good finish from Ebba Andersson. She's had a difficult draw today, the first of the big names to go, and she went out full of intention, but nothing she could do about Therese Johaug. Here she comes. It's yet another win. 5 wins already in the distance races this season, and Johaug is making it 6. 38 seconds the margin. At halfway, she was, what was he, 26 ahead of Anderson. So Eva Anderson's actually had a very good second lap, and that might just get her into 3rd place overall. We will see. It's between Palmer-Koski, Hager and Anderson for 3rd place. Usberg coming around the last bend any moment now. How does such a small figure produce so much power and maintain such a phenomenal tempo all the way round?
Well, yet another masterclass on how to attack 10 kilometers. Technically just smooth there. I love the way she brings her feet so close. You know, it's almost old style, but she's reaching so far up the track.
Little slip with the outside ski from Usberg as she comes into the home straight. 100 meters to go now. Already Therese Johaug's time has gone, but if she can stay within 28 seconds, the 2nd place pretty much assured for Usberg, and she's certainly going to do that. Not a bad run at all. 12.1, having been 14.2 behind at the top of the course. So predictions were right there, Mike. Usberg a little bit quicker on the downhill, just has to prevent herself losing the 5 or 6 seconds on climb number 1.
It's the attack, isn't it, from the start, where Therese Johaug just puts the statement down and says, right, chase me. And it puts everyone else into a very tough place because they're trying to go too hard too soon, and normally you really trip up later. Today, Usberg, I thought it was beautiful pacing. She did look relaxed at the start.
So no 3rd victory for Usberg here in Dav.os, but I guess with Therese Johaug in the field, she'll be happy with 2nd place. Jessie Diggins, as she managed to claw back some time, 1:04 behind. That will put her into 4th place in the finish if she can maintain that. But it might be 5th because Krista Palmer-Koski now coming into the finish. 9.8. This isn't bad at all, but Usberg is safe. Anderson on 38 is going to be pushed down into 4. It's been a good, strong finish from Palmer-Koski. And the number 1 Finn goes into 3rd. So, Johaug, Usberg, Palmer-Koski, the leading 3 at the moment. Only Hager, I think, can change that.
Well, for me, that's one of the strongest, if not the strongest finish. So far, Palmer-Koski, the last 3 kilometers, has pulled time back off Johaug. Some 10 seconds.
Hager 15 seconds down on Palmer-Koski at halfway. We should get a readout on Hager fairly soon. Had quite a late start, Hager. Started number 56.
She should be coming very soon up to the 7.2. That's just prior to the top of the big climb. She's got to be happy with that. And I think that is going to remain yet another podium.
I think so. Yeah. Do you know if anyone's coming from behind her? I don't know. No, they didn't say anything for me.
Well, that's quite interesting. They're completely unaware that Hager is in a position to challenge, but she's got a lot of work to do. No one's going to catch Therese Johaug. We have our winner here in Dav.os. 42 is Stadlober coming in to finish for Austria, and she's put up a good fight today. 6th position, 109.3. And just looking at her halfway time, Mike, she was already 5 seconds adrift at Diggins at halfway. So that margin has only grown a tiny little bit. 50 is Sadova of Russia. We thought she might spring a surprise. Finished 5th in the last of the distance freestyle races. Down in 8th at the moment. Lots of work to do on the closing stages. But the maximum people are going to claw back 2 or 3 seconds on the way back to the stadium.
Well, I'm just looking at the 2nd lap time for Palmer-Koski. We twigged that she had a very strong finish. She only lost 0.4 of a second over the whole of the second 5 kilometers to Therese Johaug. So and just that initial
and worth pointing out,
pace.
Mike, that by 8.2 she was 28 behind. She got the difference in the end down to 19, so she has taken 9 seconds off Johaug in the last 1800 meters. That shows something.
And 14 of her 19 seconds were lost in the first 2.2 kilometers. And that's where Therese can live with the pain, attack like a sprint race, and survive to the end. The rest, they have to pace it.
Ingmar's daughter, always struggling in the opening stages, ends up 1:30 behind. The margins are massive, so that's, what does that relate to? Something like 650, 700 meters adrift of our winner here today, and that is a big, big margin.
And Ingmar's daughter, she was
Strong
1
athlete.
minute behind at the 5K, so she's had a fantastic second lap. Jess in 5th position at the moment, 1 minute, 1 behind. I think she'll be happy with that. She's absolutely there in contention. A little bit of form finding after Christmas.
I think that will be the next fitness craze in the UK. Swiss bell swinging. Johaug, she's getting used to that chair.
There has been an amazing comeback from her 2-year ban. She's just destroyed the field. She's all the distance races available, she's won them.
So her own record of successive distance wins, Mike, is 6. She takes it up to 5 today. We can't really count the mini tour as a distance win. So this is her 5th successive distance win. One more, which will come in Toblach on, what was that? Is it New Year's Eve? No, the day before, 30th of December, to try and equal her record. Brennan goes into 6th, 1:04, and just missing out on Jessie Diggins' time. There's no doubt that that is the split that she would have been given on the way back down into the stadium. And actually, she's done very, very well in the closing stages, because she was some way, I was going to say she was behind. She was actually level, pretty much level with Diggins at 8.2. So they've had a good battle out there today. Diggins just getting the better of Brennan in the last 1,800 meters. Haga, 1:23 behind now. Now, Mike, she was only 33 seconds behind at 5K, so Haga has overcooked it, trying to chase the best in the world, and still, we haven't really seen, you know, a totally convincing performance by her.
Not yet, not this season. I think she'll be back. She started with intent, but clearly this thin air in Davos is affecting her. You need to be in good form. You need to be able to cope with coming up to 1,600 meters.
Stadlober on 1:09 is safe, and Brocard is going down into 9th position, so Sadova gets another top 10 finish in the distance races, and it's a much improved Russian team. They've been in the doldrums really since, I was going to say 2014, but even before that on the women's side. And 1:20.4, you know, we all know about the issues with the Russian team and the lack of trust, Mike, but we need them in the races because they break up the domination of the Scandinavian nations.
Yes, they do, and yes, I hope this new batch they certainly look the real deal. I'm just looking at Rosie Brennan's results, 6th position. I think that's her best ever distance result, so well done to her. And not far away from touching a podium either. 6th place, and I think Rosie Brennan just behind Jess Diggins, so it is a fabulous day for the American team.
Winning time here last year, 25:28. So the conditions considerably faster. Usberg finishing ahead of Haga and Parmakoski on that occasion. So Norway again 1 and 2, but the names changing this time round. Here comes Eva-Lena Settlin for Sweden. And she's got a personal best this season of 13th. Is she going to better that? No, she's not. Just missing out, and it's very tightly packed between 12 and 20. But she goes into 17th place, 1:43 behind, and she was outside the top 10 going through the halfway stage as well.
Do you know, I think that's a good performance considering she made it all the way through to the semi-finals yesterday.
Yeah, bear that in mind. If we look at those who got through to the final yesterday, Nielsen struggling today. Parmakoski. She got into the final, but has done well. So she's shown her tenacity again. And actually, Parmakoski finishing probably quicker than anyone else over the last 2 kilometres.
Very, very much so. This is how it looks to be the champion here today.
And I guess if the sprint is going to affect you, Mike, it's bringing the legs back to life. So maybe the first 2 kilometres, maybe that explains why Parmakoski lost so much of her time in the first 2.2.
Yes, quite amazing. Just 24 hours after taking part 4 times around the sprint race. And I'm sure the coaches will be saying, well, 19 seconds, if you hadn't done the sprint races yesterday, that 3rd place could well have been a victory.
Well, there you see the standings at 8.2. Johaug, Østberg, Parmakoski, Andersen. At the finish, it's Johaug, Østberg, Parmakoski, Andersen. So nothing changing on the descent, although the time gap's altering. Doesn't make any difference to the World Cup points, but it will make a difference to the athlete to know where they were strong and where they were weak. Haga fading in the closing stages, and at 1:22 she's not going to beat Brocard, and therefore a top 9 is out of the question. 1:30 is beaten, and Haga scraping into the top 10. So we have 3 Norwegians in the top 10. We have 2 Americans, Diggins and Brennan, have both done exceptionally well. Nice to see Stadloba getting a 7th place at the moment. Sadova of Russia is there as well, and then Finland with Parmakoski in 3, and Sweden with Andersen in 4th place. Sweden missing Charlotte Kalla today. They needed her to have a crack at winning this one, but even Charlotte Kalla, I think, will have struggled to stay with the pace of Johaug.
Very much. I must say, it's really good for the sport to see such a variety of flags, national flags in that top 10. As you said, 2 Americans, 2 Norwegians, but then Finland, Sweden, Austria, Russia, Italy.
Yeah, Elisa Brocard deserves a mention. We saw her in the leader's chair for a while. She is down in 9th place at the moment and has just been pushed down into 10 by Neprayeva. 1:17 the margin. So a good finish from Neprayeva at 8.2. She was actually just in 9th there as well. And anyone starting after 58 with a chance? I don't think so. I think Neprayeva was the last athlete. So the top 10, unlikely to change.
Yes, Durkina only as a seeded athlete still out. She'll be in very soon, but down in 19th.
Haga, a good 4 inches taller than Østberg, 5-6 inches taller than Therese Johaug, and lugging that up the big climb obviously didn't suit her second time round. She worked hard on the first lap, but lost a lot of time on the second lap. Johaug lost time in the last 2K, Mike. Is that something we should be concerned about?
I was just wondering if the coach is clearly giving her exact timings of Østberg, her main rival, and everybody else in the field. Possibly she just backed off a little. Didn't look like she consciously did, but you never know.
Lydia Durkina, the final seed, starting for Russia, and she would have been happy with her top 20 before the start of the today, and she just scrapes in 1:45. And from what we can see from 8.2 kilometers, she is going to stay there.
On the top of the podium on a distance race. How is it to race in Davos?
It's really nice to race here. I've been here for 1 week now, and we have beautiful weather all the time, so the tracks here is really tough. I have to work with myself today, but I'm so happy that I'm the top of the podium again, and it's Christmas!
So it's a Merry Christmas present to you yourself. And you also have Ingvild on the 2nd and Chris on the 3rd. How does that feel for the Norwegian girls?
It's really good. It's really nice that Ingvild take the 2nd place today, and she was not so far away behind me. So we did a really good job today, and now we're looking forward to take our Christmas holiday.
Okay, Merry Christmas and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm not sure her Christmas holiday is going to be like most of ours. I think
distance.
Yeah, there's going to be hours and hours of training. She'll be holding back on the mince pies. You know, it's not a huge amount of fun. Well, she needs to work on that little celebration, but there's not surprising that there's nothing left in the legs.
What?
She went all out, and we heard her breathing at 2.2, Mike. Very few people ever get into that state of oxygen debt, but she goes for it from the gun. By the time she's done a kilometre, she's already all out.
It's a high-risk strategy, and clearly it's in her mindset. I've got to hit this race hard, try and break everyone else a little bit psychologically, but she did fade, without a doubt. She did fade in the last 4 or 5 kilometres, but it's a strategy that's now worked 5 times since her comeback.
And the controversial 2-year ban, well, it wasn't really a 2-year ban, it was 3 months, then a year, then a 2-year.
Well,
it was extended. It was controversial.
It should have been 2 years.
It was controversial, put it that way. But has she proved that she is the world's best by coming back and winning every race she's been in except the sprint?
Well, she is right now, yep.
Yeah. What an athlete.
But sadly, there's always, for me, it spoils it.
There's a cloud.
The history, the cloud is there, which is a real pity.
So 26.06, the winning time. Don't forget she won in 2014 on this track, December 2014, 28.30 the time on that occasion. Came back the next year and won again in 29.35. So the conditions determining the ski speed, the course has pretty much stayed identical throughout. So the conditions are good, fast here in Davos. Perfect place for a Christmas holiday. Well, the slopes are still fairly sparsely occupied. You can see the chairlift in the top right-hand corner of your screen. There is some fabulous skiing to be had at this time of year. And we've had plenty of years where there's been nothing on the hills and all the snow we've been racing on has been artificial. But that is not the case this year. So if you've got a ticket and you're heading for Davos, you've made a good decision. I'm very jealous. Well, that's all from Davos for now. We have the men's 15K coming up later on. Johaug wins yet again to take her tally in the World Cup to 600. She streaks clear.